Oh, 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 shit. Oh my gosh. Hope I didn't break nothing. Now you guys might be wondering to yourself, hey Austin, what's in that there box?
What's in a box?
Or rather, boxes. I've been in contact with one of these vendors, ACOPower. They've got a battery-powered welding machine supported by nothing but batteries in two separate forms, the Lite and the Mini. We're gonna pull these things out of the box and just see how tough they can weld, because I'm gonna put it to the welder test. First thing we gotta do is get into this lovely packaging. Perfect. So here we've got the LionWelder Mini. It's an inverter machine. Now, unlike any other inverter, these don't have a plug. They don't run off the wall. This is off the grid power only. It is a battery. I got a more appropriate box opening tool. What is in this box? What is that? That's definitely a something. Sure, we'll figure out what that is soon. I'm just a humble welder. I don't know anything about batteries, but I just know the sound it makes when it welds. It looks like a welder. All right, step one. Doesn't look just like a car battery. I got to keep all the packaging nice and tidy because I'm actually going to be giving this unit away to you guys. If you finish this video, we'll tell you how that you can enter to win this battery welding machine. Let's get into the features of this old dog so you can understand what you're getting into. This is a TIG and stick machine. It means it runs a constant current, and we can run our stick stinger and we can hook up a TIG torch to it as long as we have argon gas. It is self-powered. That means it's got no plugs or nothing on it, so that makes it kind of nice. I did find out that this is the charging pack, which is a 2.4 kilowatt per hour rechargeable battery. Charging time about 3.5 hours from a dead start of 150 amps at 60% duty cycle and 100% duty cycle at 116 amps. You could run 332 stick rods all day, every day, even probably get away with some 1/8 rods too and still not hit duty cycle. 48 volts max, 47.6 pounds for this unit, which, you know, it makes it kind of portable, but it's still big. Just imagine lifting a big car battery out of your truck. And you can go check it out on ACOPower's website. You can check those links down in our description with our other trusted partners. Power's right up, got 0 amps. Hold that down, you'll see we're at 50% battery. So we are gonna probably charge this thing. I wanna see what it's all about at full tilt. Plug it in the back. So when you hit your duty cycle, you're going to be there, and if you're getting to a point where your current's too low, I'm sure you'll get that low voltage light. And then you can of course set your amps all the way up to 150 and then adjust your arc force and hot start. It didn't come with any leads, but I do have some, I think these are dense 35s, yeah, 3570s. Pretty typical for like Everlast and ESOB machines. We're going to be running DC positive, so we got our ground hooked in. Got a little jumper here so I can run my stick stinger with a dense to a Linko LC40. Run our stick welder. We're gonna do a little bit of testing with some stick rods and some TIG welding, but I wanna first get this thing fully charged, get it to max power. It says it's gonna take some time, so I guess while I wait, I can figure out how to get into this box. While they say that this is the LionWelder Lite, it's still about 200 pounds. We got us one of these things. I reckon that's probably another charger. Look at that, that's kind of birdy. Oh, that's not that heavy. For a generator, oh my butt. Never mind, it's heavy. Ugh. It's durable too. Just to give you some of the key features like we did with the Mini, it is a TIG stick machine, so we can use our terminals for positive and negative DC constant current stuff. And we do have two separate plugs here for the 120 volt 30 amp and the 240 15 amp breakers. They got some different plugs on them. It goes up to 200 amps and the duty cycle is 60% at that 200 amps. It's got 100% duty cycle at 154 amps. The battery in the back compared to the Mini is actually removable. Charges it a little faster than the Mini. Should charge in about 3 hours time instead of 3.5 hours time. 12 kilowatts is the peak on it. So you might be able to push something pretty big on it. You can run a bunch of different types of tools on it. I like to see what electrodes these two machines can run. They're both inverter machines. I'm gonna try to run as much stuff as I can, but first I gotta get both of these machines charged up and metal to prep to weld and put it to the test. So we're gonna first test this unit. We'll pop it on. Wait to hear that little tick, and then you can test it. We're at that 100%. This is capable of being charged on solar power too. I've got a little bit of 16 gauge stainless we're gonna make a quick little fillet weld on. Obviously turn our amperage down, being that this is 16 gauge, somewhere around 60, 65 DC negative, so our stinger is actually in our negative terminal. How you would go about setting this machine up for TIG is you have your ground, right here, it's plugged into the positive. And then our stinger, this is plugged into our negative. When we opt to do a scratch start setup, basically you'll end up finding this adapter block at your local weld supply. TIG torch too, you can go to your local distributor, find an ACOPower benzyl TIG torch. Typically they'll have some of these adapter block fittings too, and you just clip it onto there. So now you got gas and you've got power, and now you can TIG weld. Make sure we have argon gas running. Our hood on, and we're just going to make a little fillet weld right there, and then come over here and then tack up our piece of pipe so that we can get ready to test out the stick capabilities and do a combo weld with the big welder, because I'm a pipe welder by trade and I like to see my welding machines be able to do pipe welders. Alright, we got our argon on, so now we should just be able to touch and melt this. Typically with this little bit of a scratch start setup, you're going to have to terminate the arc by ripping off the material. With a lot of machines that have these hot starts and arc forces, we're going to leave them off for the TIG. But I noticed off the jump, you know, again with it being this battery power, there's no sound. That's kind of nice. There's not a fan running or anything. There is that fan behind me on the battery charger, but the actual welding machine not making a sound. Arc seems to be very smooth. The only thing I didn't like was like right off the start, it has like a hard tungsten grab. It doesn't have like a nice ramp up or upslope. It starts at whatever amps you set it to. We'll rip off, check out that weld a little bit. Not too bad, not too bad. I like to speed up, might change my amps. Not too bad of a little weld right there. I think we can probably, I'm going to try to move a little bit faster. The dial's a little touchy. Try 75, 76. I'm going to try to slide wire across the plate instead of tapping that tungsten. That way I don't ruin the tip of my tungsten coming into it. Need a little bit more amperage, move a little bit faster. I highly recommend a flex neck TIG rig if you're going to get one. A little bit of flexibility is kind of nice to have around. We made a nice little stainless weld there. Punch the power. We're still on 100. I'm going to go ahead and tack up this piece of pipe. We'll see what it does tacking this up. And I want to switch it to stick and see what power it has. Alright, so this is going to be our demo pipe for most of the day. Except for that little piece of 16 gauge. I wanted to show it that could still do some pretty thin material. If you know how to TIG weld it, we're going to put some tacks in this piece of pipe right here. Scratch start's just a little aggressive. I forgot to turn this machine up. That's slow going. We want to turn this thing up, get that current closer to 115. That's better. Once that arc is lit, it's really nice, pretty smooth. Put a couple tacks in. I mean, it's like any other welder, honestly. I'm gonna flip it around, pull this guy out. The only sound in my shop right now is that charger for the other welding machine, but I think it's really cool that this thing ain't making any sound. I got some welding machines that are pretty friggin' loud. I've had some worse scratch start setups, especially if you have like a machine that has TIG but you keep it on stick. That sucker will grab that tip of your tungsten and it's a sure enough mess. This isn't having that big of an issue, but it is a scratch start, no lift arc, no remote kind of situation. Sorry about that, everyone with headphones. We're just getting a nice even fit up. If you flick fast, if you're quick about it, it actually doesn't stick too bad. Amperage is a little higher. Put a couple tacks in, not a whole lot of welding, but 3 tacks, any drop. Still at 100. Let's try to drop some numbers here. Now there's nothing really to do to swap this machine over for stick other than just taking these terminals and swapping our ground and our actual stinger. So now we're running DC positive. We're going to start with a smaller rod, a 332 rod, about 90 amps. Arc force, I don't need a lot of arc force in here, probably closer to nothing, maybe a little hot start, little arc force, just to see what it's like. We're going to make one lap around this pipe, try out some 332 7018s, we're going to try out some 1/8s, we're going to try out the 6010s, which seem to be the bane of a lot of little welding inverters, and we'll even try out a little bit bigger of a rod like a 532 8010 just to see where this machine is at. Remember, this machine isn't really even made for the shop. This little tyke right here is made For off the grid type situations, when you need to go make a quick weld or you've got something quick to do. I mean, we've made a little quick weld already and we haven't even dented the power. So we're gonna see if we can make one lap and see where we're sitting at with the power and how it welds with this 332 7018.
Upon the initial arc strike seemed to be very smooth. No issues, stable current. It's running just like anything else that I'd like it to see, you know. Got one rod almost burnt all the way down.
One rod burnt down to its numbers. Got a nice little peeler, so you know it welded pretty good. Right amperage is there.
Good arc strike. Really steady, stable arc for 7018. It's very typical, you know, for this type of, these rods. They're running how they should run. And that's what you're looking for in a welder like this, is to make sure that it's able to weld this rod the way it's supposed to. Now a lot of little machines that tend to have a problem when we start to go up in electrode size. So that's what we'll do next, is switch from these 332s.
Once we make it all the way around this piece of pipe. So I think we're gonna have to run 4 of these rods.
We shouldn't be affecting the duty cycle on this machine either. At this amperage, we should be able to just stay constantly welding as pretty much all you can weld at this 90 some odd amps.
And I know what y'all are saying, you're doing it the easy way, you're rolling it. We're testing the machine, we're not testing me. I don't want to work harder, I just want to see the welding capabilities of this little machine. And so far, pretty impressed. Let's see, are we off 100 yet? Still not off 100. I don't like that I can't see exactly what percent we're on, but
Definitely gives me a lot of confidence still being at 100.
I've already seen what I can see with these 332s. I'm gonna bump it up to about 130 some odd amps for these 1/8 7018s. I wanna see some drop and some power. I mean, we've already welded a little bit with TIG. We got 4 rods in with stick. Let's see if we can't drop some power on this thing. Let's see.
130 amps now. Same characteristics as the 332, very typical for this rod, how it's running, the sound it's making. The more amps you use, the less rod you're going to be able to burn. If you burn like 332 rods, you might get 30 rods compared to, you know, 20 rods with a 1/8 rod. I don't know, I haven't burned this welder down to
0%, but get some more. Let's get around this piece of pipe. Just weld. Six rods of 7018. Check power. It's starting to definitely move out of that 100% and closer to that 75%. We're gonna switch it up for just a second because I want to see if this machine is capable of running a 6010 worth a dang. Because a lot of these little inverter machines, they don't have the enough voltage in order to power it. My guess is this one's going to, but there's only one way to find out, and that's lighting up with the 6010 and then seeing if it stays lit. We're gonna have a little bit more arc force, maybe just to jump more in the hot start. See what happens.
6010 1/8. Yeah. So you see how this machine will want to kind of push it for a little while. We'll get some weld going. Well, it's hanging on to it now, but then
it'll stop. And this is something that's pretty common in little inverters like this. This 6010 requires a little bit of extra voltage jump from the get-go in order to weld that 6010. I'm not going to try to push it. It's going to be just a kind of a waste of time. Now a 6011, for whatever reason, 6013, no problem. 7014, no problem. But those 6010s seem to be a little tricky. I wonder if it'll even handle one of these 8010s. These 8010s are still supposed to be the same chemical composition, or at least F number. They still seem to weld a little bit different on these little inverters than a 6010, which is strange. But we'll see if it'll push a 532 8010.
ooh, it does not love it. It does not love it. Yeah, it wants to kind of dip out of that arc a lot.
Lots of extra voltage needed in order to run these types of rods, but we can still run a 7018 1/8 at this 150 amps. My goal now is to just try to kill this sucker. Maxed out this unit. We're gonna see how much life we can suck out of it.
Yeah, that was a bad rod. 150 amps, 7018, no problemo.
Surely we're down to that 75 now. Yeah, we're at that 75%. We're welded with 8 rods, I think now, and we just used that rod at max amperage. Welded really good. I don't think we need that max amperage. I'm not gonna try to max this thing out, but I do wanna see how many rods it'll run at a modest 125 for that 1/8 7018. It's still at 75, what the heck? Whew, I wish my welds were straighter. I honestly didn't think it was gonna make it this far. Making a mess in here.
And it still seems to have the same power as it did whenever it had a, freshly charged battery.
We're still at that 75 mark.
This 1/8 will put in that work for it, and 20 electrodes, honestly pretty surprised that we're not halfway yet. I can only imagine what the big beast behind me actually can do.
We are on rod number 30. And I'm not even being sarcastic. Did not expect it to make it past 20 rods, especially at 135 amps. We've had to turn it up just so I could try to kill it faster. I mean, it's performing just fine. No
Duty cycles being hit. This is rod number 30.
You are looking at rod number 40. 50 freaking percent still. I can't kill it. It's killing me. I did not expect 40 electrodes. Granted, the first 4 were 332s run at 90, but we're still at 50%, 130 something amps. I have never seen a battery welder do this. The battery welder that I own doesn't do this. The battery welders that I've tried won't weld this long. I'm not seeing any drop in the arc. It's still running the same as it did before. I'm sick of freaking welding. I mean, that's what you want. If it's gonna sit there and take 3.5 hours to charge, you want it to outwork you.
And so far, I'm impressed and I'm over it.
40 freaking rods. Still haven't got below 50%. I'm gonna go ahead and pack this sucker up because it won't die. And we're gonna break out the big dog and see some of its capabilities. Moving back to the 4041, the LionWelder Lite. It actually is not too bad. Whenever you take the battery out, you can lift it. I bet I could put that in the back of my truck and shimmy it on around. This battery right here was definitely a heavy part. I need to get more in shape. This is just a nice, pleasant reminder of that. Anyway, let's get this in. I recommend standing over it if you can. Yeah. Pull these cables out, screw that in all the way, maybe give it a little wiggle, shake, and a push. Make sure it's in all the way. Flip those leads to where they connect. Snapped in, closed in, and now we should be ready to work. Now, as far as the battery we just shoved in there, that is a 4.1 kilowatt per hour battery. This is a quiet old gal. She just a couple clicks and clinks and then a little bit of some fan noise, shuts off right away, and we're good to go. We've got everything on. The welder is still powered off. We're not going to test that quite yet. If you go check these guys out in our link and description below, you'll find a little bit more information on those. And again, we're going to be giving away that other welding machine. All you got to do is get in the comments and be giving us a follow. Let's get back into this. We'll notice that it's got 3 different plugs in here. I don't have anything that runs these plugs, but if you have any specialty tools that require a bigger plug, it's going to be able to run those. If we have a bigger extension cord to run multiple tools, then you could probably trust that the 30 amp will do the trick. But all we have is to plug into this little 20 amp guy. All that on, the AC to the 120 volts. And we've got our extension cord right here. We've got 3 plugs. We're going to start with a grinder. Let's plug in a grinder. Okay, a little grinding. Typical. Let's try 2 grinders. 2 grinders at once. That's nice to know. That's off just the one plug. Let's try 2 grinders and a chop saw. 3 tools plugged in. Don't try this at home. Wear your safety glasses, that whole bit. Look at there. All right, how do I turn these off? We know that these things are stick and TIG machines. So I've got myself my leads here. We're gonna be running a TIG pipe. I'm not gonna sit here and try to outweld this thing. I've already seen what its little brother can do, and I'm not gonna sit here and try to outwork it. There was another video of a guy using this all day for 5 hours, plasma cutting 1/2-inch steel all day, and he was still didn't get it past 75. I believe it from what I tested over there. But what I'm gonna try out next is this switch here that switches from ACOPower to welder. So the way I've got this TIG torch set up is a 2-piece rig. So instead of the adapter block, we actually have our gas hose run into our little fitting right here with a valve, and then we have our LC40 connectors, those Linko connections, to get that going. Now remember, this thing is on AC power switch right now, so if I had to guess, it's probably not gonna light up. Got the gas? Yeah, no power. So you're not gonna be able to weld and use grinders at the same time, but we do have a full 200 amps right here and our arc force and hot start capabilities. I'm gonna leave the arc force and hot start down because we're gonna be TIG welding. Once I get this root in there, I'm gonna run it wide open as much as I can at 200 amps. So we'll get the root in first. This dial is so sensitive. So we're gonna turn this guy up to like 110. It's a little bit snug in some spots. I think 115 or 110 will be a little bit better.
Yeah, similar arc start as the other machine. It's a scratch start setup, so there's no up slope or down slope. So you're going to be kind of hard pressed to not like dig into that tungsten, so you just swipe that wire across. You won't hurt your tungsten as much. This is a typical pipe welding application, probably not something that this machine was marketed for. It's welding just fine. If you think about it, using a battery operated welding machine on a job site, lots of benefits to that. Some job sites won't even allow gas-powered welding machines on the actual location, depending on where you're at. If it's like petrochemical type stuff, some of them will be okay with some diesel drives, but sometimes gas drives are not allowed on some job sites.
We're gonna turn it up because that was a little slow for me. Try 120. Root looks pretty good. That's the other side. Here's the inside. Here's the bottom. We broke down the walls all the way up. Good clean root. A little flat right there, but good clean root. Now we're gonna turn everything up. Peak out this current at old 200 amps. Hot pass fill capped this guy. I did just notice we moved down to the 75%. Now we got this thing maxed out.
We're going to see what she's really capable of.
It burns everything good as far as the lay wire hot pass goes. And now that there's a solid bead and hot pass in there, we can really test this duty cycle, start hogging in some fill.
I want to see if I can get it to stop. So we're going to take our time with this fill. Just working on getting this thing flushed out. Puddle's still smooth, still at 75%. Haven't hit a duty cycle yet. Skin out these bevel edges and one big bead. Might have to do another little butter pass to kind of get the crown of this up. Because I don't think I'm going to do a 2 bead cap. I'll probably just settle for the 1.
I think this thing will outwork you. It's still at 75. We've been running it at its max amperage for this entire pipe. We're about to cap this pipe. We are going to end up doing a 2 bead cap, unlike what I thought I was going to do it before. But the bevels were so wide, it'll look better if we do 2. But we're going to cap maybe a little colder. We're going to cap probably closer to 180.
I'm just going to move that puddle as fast as it'll let me move. Kind of keeping my wire to that bevel edge side, if not in the middle, and then spreading a little bit past halfway in these bevels. I'd say that I'm probably taking 75% of this groove with my first weld here. Make sure you get all those fills pass flush, especially in the center. That way when you cap, you don't have to worry about carrying a whole lot of metal, and you can focus more on speed and quality instead of making sure that you're past flush. Because if you're not past flush, then you're probably going to have to put a little bit more weld on there. The second bead, we just want to make sure we cover a little bit more than half of that last bead, or at least find the highest point of the weld that we just did and tie into it.
We got one more bead, but we're at 50. Bonito. You know, at one point in my career, this pipe would have been a tasty little snack. I'm nauseous. That was a full meal. Welded this piece of pipe in position today, so you guys couldn't hate on me, and not only that, but we can really test the true pipe welder capabilities of this thing. It is freaking disgustingly hot in this shop. I've hit duty cycle for sure. This thing outworked me, and I think if you guys looked into these Lion welders, this is again the LionWelder Lite, and then we got the LionWelder Mini that we're giving away. Freaking beast of a little portable 50-pound weld machine. If you go to their website, in our link below, you'll get 43% off. We're giving you the ends on it pretty quick. It's welder tested, welder approved. Y'all go check out ACOPower in the description below so you can get in on a really sweet deal. We'll see you guys on the next weld. I'm not even shitting you. I've just been cleaning up after the weld. We're back at 75. I haven't even plugged it in.